two subjects today. First, I want to talk about assets. We've been talking a lot about spending in the federal budget and tax dollars, but there's another side to the ledger that sooner or later, in my judgment, we need to talk about. Here's what I'm getting at. 25% of the land in the United States of America is owned by the federal government. 25%. In some states, it's a lot more than 25%. That's just an average. It's 620 million acres. Now, if you inherited 620 million acres, what would you do? Well, the first thing you would do is you would be careful to conserve it out of respect for the land. You would want to make sure that land wasn't contaminated, that it was properly fenced. You'd want to preserve it. Second thing you would do is say, well, how can I monetize this property?
All right, folks, welcome back to Conservative Chronicle. Buckle up, because today we're diving into a financial disaster that no one in Washington seems to want to fix. The U.S. is drowning in debt, and we're ignoring one of our biggest assets, federal land. Senator John Kennedy recently exposed just how much money we're leaving on the table, and trust me, when you hear the numbers, you're going to be shocked. So if you care about where your tax dollars go, stick around, because this one's important. Did you know that 25% of...
I got 620 million acres here. I'm land poor. What can I do to have the land generate some income? Under our federal government, the Bureau of Land Management is responsible for managing the 620 million acres. And the charge to our Bureau is to do a couple of things. Number one, conserve the land. Number two, make sure, because it belongs to the American people, make sure that people have an opportunity to recreate on the land. And number three, see if you can manage the land in a way to generate cash. Why is that important? Why is that especially important right now?
All land in the U.S. is owned by the federal government. That's 620 million acres, a landmass larger than Alaska, Texas, and California combined. The U.S. government is doing the exact opposite, and it's costing us big time. The U.S. national debt is $36.50 trillion and growing by $10 billion a day. Instead of using our land to generate revenue, the federal government actually lost $13 billion.
Our debt's $36.5 trillion. What does that mean? I mean, we throw around this figure of $1 trillion. We can hardly get our mind around it. At least I can hardly get mine around. Our debt is so high, and we're paying so much interest, that the debt grows by $1 trillion every 100 days. So this 36.5 trillion figure, 100 days from now, a little over 3 months, it's going to be 37.5 trillion. That's how fast the debt's growing.
In 2023, on land that experts say could bring in $90 billion a year. So why are we losing money when states like Arizona and Montana are making millions from their land?
$90 billion a year. That'd help us pay down this debt. In 2023, our federal lands actually lost money. They lost $13 billion. We went from a potential of $90 billion, according to land use experts, that's what they ought to be generating, to a loss of $13 billion. It's embarrassing.
According to Senator Kennedy,
instead of gaining $90 billion a year. It doesn't have to be this way. All we have to do is look at the states. The states have state land. They don't have 620 million acres like the federal government does, but they got a lot of land. The states have worked very hard to increase the revenue on their state lands while preserving them. Arizona, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, all we have to do is copy them. This number is so high, and we're paying so much in interest that debt accrues at $10 billion a day, not million, $10 billion a day. $417 million, it goes up an hour. 6.9, let's call it 7 million a minute. What have I've been talking, 3 minutes? Debt just got increased $21 million. And we've got to pay that money back. This is not funny money. We're talking about how
it's because of government mismanagement and endless regulations. Under the current administration, we've seen offshore drilling bans, mining restrictions on over 1 million acres, canceled oil and gas leases, hunting and fishing limits, and mountains of red tape blocking new projects. Instead of making money, we're choking off our own economy. Just listen.
Now, I don't want to blame all of it on the past administration. It wasn't all President Biden's fault, but some of it was. Under President Biden, not him, but his people, he appointed them, they banned offshore drilling off of most of America's coastlines. They prohibited mining on over 1 million acres of lands. They canceled leases for oil and natural gas production. They paused all new permits for LNG, which Europe is hungry for. They restricted hunting, they restricted fishing, they restricted hiking. And they buried our federal lands in red tape. That's why we lost $13 billion. Some of our national parks actually allow mining, oil and gas production, timber production, so that increases income as well. I have seen an estimate from the private sector, there's several of these, that our public land, our $620 million, if we managed that land properly, could generate $90 million in revenue. $90 million could be generated by our public land. How? Through mineral harvesting, natural gas production, oil drilling, grazing for agriculture, hunting licenses, fishing licenses, camping permits. You know what our federal lands actually generate in money? We know the potential.
Look at what states like Arizona, Idaho, and New Mexico are doing. These states actually profit from their public lands while keeping them protected. Kennedy's solution is simple. Use federal land to generate revenue while keeping it well managed and protected.
To start paying it back by reducing our spending, but there's another way. It's to generate income through our 620 million acres of land. Take our national parks, for example. First thing we want to do with our national parks is preserve them. I mean, they're beautiful. That's why they're national parks. We want to preserve them and respect them and protect them environmentally and otherwise. We also want to allow people to enjoy them. And we do that by telling folks, come on in. You have to pay an entrance fee, but it's reasonable if you want to come in and camp or just walk around and enjoy the scenery, go on a hike. And that generates some money. You don't want the entrance fee to be too high, but you want it to be reasonable. And in some
less debt, more jobs, better economy. It's common sense. Hey, if you're still with me and you think this is a conversation worth having, hit that subscribe button right now.
Their activities, their preservation of their property, but their monetizing of their state lands has produced over the past few years an average return of $14.51 for every $1 those states have invested. So the states spend $1 on their state lands, they get back 15 bucks. Pretty good return. And they haven't sacrificed air quality. They've protected their lakes and rivers, and they've preserved their state land. The federal government, for every $1 we spend on our public land, we get back 73 cents. So we put out $1 and we get back 73 cents. You don't have to be Euclid to see that we're going backwards here. We need to do better. And I know that the focus right now, Madam President, is on spending, and it should be. And it's on designing a tax code that looks like somebody designed it on purpose, and it should be. All those things are important. But at some point, we need to recognize the enormous amount of assets that the American people own through their federal government, and the fact that we are actually losing money by the way we are managing them instead of generating money. And once again, this is not, you don't have to be an astrophysicist to figure this out. All we got to do is call Arizona, Idaho, Montana, New Mexico, and probably West Virginia, and just say, would y'all come up to Washington? We'll buy you a soda and give you a nice hat if you'll come on up here and tell us how you're doing it, and just copy what they're doing.
Now, it takes 2 seconds and it helps more people see the truth about what's really going on. So here's the big question. Will Washington actually fix this? Or are we going to keep watching our debt spiral out of control while billions in potential revenue sit there untapped? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future breakdowns. Until next time, stay informed and stay sharp.